The enemy has struck at the heart of our empire. A puny contingent of their soldiers has been captured here on Kilrathi.
This incursion was an act of desperation. The hairless apes now flail about knowing that they are beaten. They have failed their race utterly. There will be no interrogation.
Do what you will with them.
Disintegration. Silence. My brethren, they are not warriors, but maggots. Only one of them is worthy of being treated as a warrior. The one they call Angel. Still defiant, Colonel. If we were to offer coexistence with your kind, would you not accept it?
The Kilrathi do not coexist.
No, and now that the tide has turned in this war, your defiance is a pathetic and useless gesture.
You bore me, monsieur. Disintegrate me so I might join my comrades.
Disintegration is not for you. Your fate will be different. The human cannot appreciate the honor that I am about to bestow her. She is not only a great warrior, but her lair mate is the heart of the tiger.
Rest in peace.
Peace. Have we ever known anything like that, Paladin?
Not for a long time, laddie.
First the tiger's claw, now this.
Enough. You are not to blame for either.
Some would disagree. This is Colonel Christopher Blair. Report to Admiral Tallwin. The wreckage of the Concordia has been located on Vespus off the Mistral coast. Evaluation. Total loss.
You can't live your life for the approval of one man.
Any word from Angel?
None.
Is that the official line?
I know how much she means to you, laddie.
Excuse me, sir. Did you say the victory?
Is there something wrong with your hearing, Colonel?
No, sir. It's just that
The TCS Victory is a fine carrier with a long history of service to the Confederation.
Yes, sir. A very long history, sir.
Ship assignments aren't open to debate, Colonel. Of course, I realize that the accommodations may not be what you're quite used to.
Well, sir, I didn't mean to suggest that.
The Victory will benefit greatly from having a wing commander of your stature and experience.
Thank you, sir. But can't we at least discuss the...
Now that we have the Kilrathi on the run in both the Gardel and Morpheus systems, I can afford to shift you to the Victory in Orsini. What I am trying to tell you, Colonel, is that things are looking up. The Confederation has been making some very positive strides. Dismissed.
Sir, about my request.
Yes. But it came as a bit of a surprise to me. As you know, Colonel Devereaux's status is on a need-to-know basis. Your shuttle is waiting.
Yes, sir.
Despite recent losses in several densely populated sectors, Confederation spokespeople insist that humanity maintains the upper hand in its galactic struggle with the Kerothi. However, our sources document a consistent underreporting of Kilrathi incursions, as well as civilian and industrial losses. There are even reports of Confed plans for a doomsday evacuation of Earth, replanting the seeds of humanity in a distant galaxy. The question is, who would go? Who would be left behind? And most importantly, who is making these decisions?
Welcome to the TCS Victory, Colonel.
Thank you, Captain.
Better known as Tin Can Sally.
It warms my heart to see you again, Colonel. But I must excuse myself now, as your duty here takes precedence over our catching up on old times.
Thank you, Hobbs. We'll talk later.
Yes, I know what you're thinking. She's no Concordia.
Well, neither is a Concordia anymore.
Yes, terrible loss. My sympathies. However, you're in my home now, and I'll expect you to wipe your feet every time you come in.
That was a good burn.
I've been with the Victory most of my career. I was communications officer during a maiden voyage.
Well, sir, I'll
Did you ever
admit
watch this
I
guy in
wasn't
Herman's
looking
Head?
forward to the assignment,
Yeah,
but
I like this guy in Herman's
now that I
Head.
see you have a
Ben's been
pilot as
repeating the
fine as
lines the
Rogan
entire
Hollis on
time.
your crew.
Hobbs. Yes, he's my second in command.
He's not
Hobbs.
flying?
At his
V,
request.
too, the original
At his
V.
request.
I know all about his exploits with you, Colonel. But here, no one will fly with a Kerothi on his wing.
What about his
gotta admit, it's a little
exemplary
weird.
record? That must stand for something.
It was his
Ben, can I be your
request.
wingman?
Sure. Yes.
Captain Eisen, I'm not going to tell you how to run your ship, but I am going to insist that Hobbs is reinstated to the flight
But
roster
I am going to
immediately.
very specifically tell you how to run your ship.
Well, that's admirable, Colonel, but who...
I will, sir. I'll fly with him. He's the best wingman I've ever had.
He's the best wingman I've ever had. Well, we were a little early from our 44-second countdown. How you doing, Ben?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Why don't you tell the folks at home what we're doing?
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Happy Hour Happy Hour RSI Museum.
Happy Hour Museum.
RSI Museum Happy. I am your host, Ben Lesnick. I'm here to talk about one of my very favorite things in the world, Wing Commander. And I'm joined, as always, by the Master of Disaster himself, the man inside the plastic helmet, Mr. Jared Descoleto Huckabee.
Hello, everybody. How are you? Check this out. Look how cool this is. Finally found a helmet that fits my head.
As you can see, I had a ridiculous toy, and now Jared's playing with it. So we are here today to talk about Wing Commander 3, Heart of the Tiger, a game that had a massive impact, I think, on everyone who played it. I mean, we were all here today because of this game. Massive impact on everyone who played it, a massive impact on the industry. When you look at everything that happened before Wing Commander 3 and after Wing Commander 3, it's just night and day. Not only how games are played, what level of realism and experience and immersion they had, but also how they were made. This was one of the first projects that ever had hundreds of people working on it in different facilities, and having to manage something of that scale was unknown in the industry before that. So it's a really exciting thing to look at, and I hope you guys have a good time.
Yes, this is the Wing Commander 3 is where I started with the Wing Commander series. It's where I discovered Chris Roberts and everything. I didn't own a computer, but I bought the game and would take it to my neighbor's house, and he would play it. He wouldn't let me play it. He wouldn't let me touch his computer, and I would just sit there and watch. That was enough. I was so enthralled with the story. It was enough for me to just watch somebody else play. I love this game so much.
So let's set our minds back in time to 1994. Was a really, really interesting time for kind of science fiction in general. We were sort of at the turning point in the Star Wars Renaissance. People were looking back and saying, oh yeah, Star Wars was cool. Why did we stop liking that? And you had stuff like the West End Games RPG, the Zahn books, the TIE Fighter, X-Wing and TIE Fighter. TIE Fighter came out earlier in 1994, and it kind of threatened to dethrone Wing Commander as the end-all, be-all space simulator, and then Chris hit back with Wing Commander 3. But this was Star Trek: The Next Generation was on TV. Babylon 5 had just started. It was kind of the emergence of the geek culture you see today. You had people getting onto online bulletin boards, communicating across the country for the first time about these things they were passionate about. So you had communities like Wing Commander, Star Trek, Star Wars, everything forming. It was just an incredibly exciting time to be alive. I was 13 years old at the time, and I consider myself very, very lucky to have been there then, as much as I was. So, turning back the clock a couple of years, I think probably anyone who would tune in for this is familiar with Wing Commander 1 and 2. They were massive shifts in their own right, especially Wing Commander 1, and as in both how games are made and how they're presented and how you interact with them. And I think everybody expected Wing Commander 3 was just going to follow that same formula. Wing Commander 2 was an advancement of the technology in Wing Commander 1, and the initial plan in 1992 was that Chris would finish Strike Commander, and then he would kind of do the same thing, just move the series a little bit further to its narrative conclusion. But when they started out the project, there was not this idea that it was going to have full motion video and textured 3D combat and all these things it introduced. And I remember as a fan at the time, the thing that really... the first time I saw the 3D ships in Wing Commander 3, the trailer with all the real actors, and oh my God, Luke Skywalker!
At a time where not a lot of people were working with Mark Hamill.
Yeah, it was kind of like somebody had picked your favorite thing and told you were right about it. You know, I loved Wing Commander. I love Wing Commander 1, Wing Commander 2, Wing Commander Privateer, but it was a cult thing, and now it was the biggest thing in the world, and there had been all this attention lavished on it. It looked as good as things on TV. It had what to a 13-year-old geek seemed like a all-star cast. It was something incredibly special, something nobody expected. Between Wing Commander 2 and 3, there is, in addition to just casting actors to play the roles, there's a huge change in how the game looks. I would say it's akin to going from the 1960s Star Trek to the motion picture, where it's the same people, it's the same story, it's the same universe, but they've given it this, they've torn it down and rebuilt it. The Enterprise is a totally different looking ship, even though we kind of pretend it was refitted. And anyway, so Wing Commander 3. If you've seen one of these RSI Museum streams before, we have all sorts of bits and bobs to share, and we're going to try to play some of the games, show off why it was so cool, and let's get to that.
Absolutely. And to piggyback on what you were saying before, when I was a kid, this came out. Everybody knows my favorite character in Star Wars is Lando. I tended to gravitate more towards the support characters who seem to make everything possible. With Indiana Jones, where everybody else was like, I love Indiana Jones, I always liked Sala. Like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, Sala came out of nowhere, and saved Indy's butt, saved Marion's butt. So. We saw the trailer for Wing Commander 3 when it came out, and I'm like, Luke Skywalker, like everybody else. But John Rhys Davies was the thing that sold me. It was what made me buy the game, even though I didn't own a computer, and then go and make a friend who did own a computer, just so I could be like, can you play this for me so I can watch it, please?
And he's so good at it. Everybody does such a good job in this. And this is it. I'm going to tell you a little bit about how the game was made. So back to 1994. A lot of people look back on that era of gaming and they go, full motion video. That was a mistake. Wing Commander 3, 4, and to some degree Prophecy are the exceptions to that mistake. This is full motion video done right.
Yes.
And it was essentially full motion video done first. We look at this technology and we say, oh, it was just a thing that everybody in the industry had. Not the case at all. This was Electronic Arts' flagship for figuring out how to do it. In January 1994, they had a test shoot. It was 8 minutes of footage. They cast totally separate actors to come in, and they shot them on 16mm film, 35mm film, beta, of all the different possible formats to try to figure out how you would make this idea happen, how you would have real actors in a game that also seemed like a movie rather than somebody sitting in front of a webcam. That's Chris totally. That's Chris pushing for that. That's what we see in Star Citizen. It's not, so many games today are, we have all this tech perfected. We're going to arrange it in this way. We're going to build content, and we have a year release schedule. Chris pushes everything farther than you would have thought it was possible to push it. When you compare this to anything else that was released in 1994, it looks like it came from a different planet, and that's what Chris Roberts does when he runs a project. It's really incredible. So let me share some concept stuff, some of the...
Sure.
All right, let's see. Let's start with the manual. This is Victory Streak, another one of these classic David Ladyman edited Origin Creative Services manuals. The concept here is it's your guide to the TCS Victory. You get a welcome letter from the captain, and there's the ship stats and all the usual stuff you have to have in a manual, ship stats and the history of the war and introduction to your wingmen, and they always come up with some little narrative tricks for that. Like, oh, here's it was like the Pilot of the Month awards for the past 6 months, and what a coincidence! All the wingmen you have in the game each won a Pilot of the Month award that describes their personality. So it's your usual clever origin manual. I remember when this came out. I had begged and pleaded and begged my mother to buy it for me for Christmas, which she did. Wing Commander 3 was also the rare Origin project that shipped on time. So it came out at around Thanksgiving 1994, and I had to wait a month. I remember going to my best friend's house and begging him to let me borrow the manual, which I then took home and transcribed in a notebook because I wasn't going to get my one for another month.
And you didn't have access to a photocopier or anything? No,
this was the dark ages. And I don't think I could ever admit to anyone that I was doing that at the time. This was my thing. So it's a great manual. It also came with a poster, kind of a long fold-out poster called Warbirds, that shows off 10 of the ships from the game. And I'm going to go through these right now because these ship designs are beautiful. I don't know that this is specifically where Chris settled on this idea of putting so much into the technology and the ships of the universe to have an actual art director who supervises this, which you did not really have before this. But these fire on all cylinders. These are the great-grandfather of everything we do in Star Citizen ship-wise. And if you play Wing Commander 1 and 2, those are very sort of anime styled. You know, they clearly enjoyed a lot of Robotech, and they pulled some designs from movies and things. The Rapier's the Firefox, the Raptor's the Gunstar, and so on. This is doing art like a movie, where you have an art department, you have an aesthetic, someone who directs it, who makes sure everything looks good together, looks coherent, and also makes sense in the world, and it turns out so cool. So this is the Aero Light Fighter that you start with. You actually start with the Hellcat, but it's the lightest fighter.
How accurate are these stats?
These stats are not accurate at all. If you have about 7 hours, I can go through all of these stats and tell you which ones are wrong and why. And you know, when you're a ridiculous Wing Commander fan for so many years, you learn to see. Okay, this would have had to go to print a couple months, 5 weeks or something before the actual game came out. So all that late game balancing doesn't get reflected. But you also learn, like, oh, here's where they made a copy and paste error, and they copied and pasted the last one, and they didn't change these 3 stats.
That doesn't happen anymore. That never happens.
It's endearing, though. It's that humanity at the core of the thing.
Yes.
And I can also tell you the 50 different versions of the stats, because there's the manual for the PC version, the manual for the 3DO version that changes things up, the manual for the PlayStation version.
Now, did the stats actually change between the versions, or did the stats in the manual change?
They change from version to version for balancing reasons. They change from version to version for theoretically correcting reasons between the different versions, but they're still wrong in every single one.
Okay. And does the Hellcat 5 come with LTI?
Well, there is an invulnerable switch, so yes. Here's the Excalibur. This is the big reward ship in the game. I always thought it was interesting that they throw it at you right in front. It's in the manual. It's right there. You're getting it. This is the favorite ship design of a whole lot of people. I've heard people say it looks like the Carrack. I kind of see the shape a little bit, but it's much smaller. This is a single seater. This is my favorite look, though. This is the Thunderbolt 7. This is taken right out of the Vietnam War. This is, an attack plane that you would see on a carrier in the 60s. It's so cool. And I love the shark mouth. I love just the meanness of it.
I love the shark mouth.
Here is the Longbow Bomber, which kind of X-wingy, but it's also, again, it's much bigger. It's a large bomber type ship.
It looks like a lawn dart. It's supposed to a longbow. Long dart bomber.
And then we have the Kilrathi Empire. The Kilrathi, when you think about the Kilrathi today, you think of these like knife, asymmetrical knife style things, this cutting, aggressive. If you can separate Wing Commander 1 and 2 in your head and go back and look at them, they're not like that at all. They're super round. All the cap ships in Wing Commander 2 are big and round. The Drolfi in Wing Commander 1 is literally a circle. Because there was no consistent 100% aesthetic. Here, they sat down and they came up with this profile for the Kilrathi. How are we going to create this species in there? What's their sense? Just like we do with the Jean and the Tavarn and all the Star Citizen races. They went through a very primitive version of that same process. So we got Kilrathi ships that look like this. This is the Dark Light Fighter. This is their version of the Drolfi. One thing people always say is, oh, there's a Drolfi in every Wing Commander game. There's not. There's a Drolfi in Wing Commander 1, and then there's Drolfi in Wing Commander 3 forward. But there were games without them in between that we forget about. So this is no fan thing. Vaktoth, their heavy fighter. This is their... If you remember the Straka Stealth Fighter, which was kind of the MacGuffin, the MacGuffin in Wing Commander 2, it was literally just a square. It looked like a graham cracker. And here,
there was no stealth. There was no stealth fighter in Wing Commander 2. Stealth fighters don't exist.
All right. Pac-10 bomber. What else? And this last one I wanted to share. This is part of the manual from the 3DO version, because I mentioned they updated the manual for each port. There's a good origin joke in the original manual it's like movie reviews, and one of them is for System Shock. So then they added the System Shock screenshot for the 3DO version, which I thought was adorable, and I don't know, shit. So let me talk about versions. Actually, I will go to the versions folder. Here's the MS-DOS original. This is the one that shipped in 1994. First of all, beautiful poster art. I know a lot of people have in their minds, kind of like the original Star Wars art as their idea of the process by which they're disappointed by modern movie posters is they think back to Star Wars and like, oh, the movie posters now suck.
Yes.
Wing Commander 3, same thing. I look at this and it ruins all later game boxes for me. This is beautiful. You're playing Star Wars.
Yes. And just to let you know that we're still in the 90s, the heart of the tiger in that 90s extreme fun.
Oh, yeah.
That's so extreme, Ben.
Totally. And this was before we all had to drink Mountain Dew to be extreme. So DOS version came out late 1994. Electronic Arts put a whole lot of money into Wing Commander 3, around $3.5 million. Typically got rounded to $4 million in interviews and things because that was back when you wanted to talk about how much money games cost, and this was the most expensive game ever at the time. So they back then wanted to port it to as many systems as possible. The first being the Panasonic 3DO. 3DO, but Panasonic made a version. I'm not going to explain how the 3DO works because that would be a show in and of itself, but the 3DO, which was a system that Electronic Arts was especially interested in supporting at the time because the 3DO company was founded by Trip Hawkins, who had founded Electronic Arts years earlier. So there is the first port of Wing Commander 3 was for the 3DO, and it is amazing. It is a totally different game. It is, in my mind, the single greatest video game port, PC to console port ever. Almost every other Wing Commander port doesn't work on a console because you go from having a keyboard and a throttle and a joystick to having two buttons. How do you get all the controls in? For the 3DO one, they sat down and they redesigned how it plays entirely, and it was every single mission layout is different. It has more footage that was cut from the game. I can talk about a little bit of that later. They colorize the view screens instead of having them green and black. It's a totally cool experience. If you've never played, never played it, here's the 3DO box. If you've never played the 3DO version, 3DO emulators work pretty well now. It's readily available. Definitely try it. It's a totally different Wing Commander 3 experience. After that, they went on to port it to the PlayStation. The original PlayStation, this was one of those large, with the first generation PlayStation box where it was like a heavy cardboard.
Yeah.
And it was, they ported it the next year to the Macintosh. You see they added Macintosh to the box art. Macintosh and PlayStation ports are striving to be just like the PC version. Macintosh is fine. It is exactly like the PC version. The PlayStation one suffers a bunch because it tries to do everything on much more limited hardware. Mm-hmm. In fact, you're probably wondering, hey, I've played Wing Commander 4 on PlayStation Network. Why can't I get Wing Commander 3? Wing Commander 3 is one of the only games that was never certified for cross-function, for backwards compatibility on the PlayStation 2. I remember they would put out this list when the PlayStation 2 came out, like, these games have not been certified in Wing Commander 3, just because of the hacks and tricks they used to make it work. Wing Commander 3 PlayStation was also done outside of Origin. It was an Electronic Arts team out in California, separate group of guys. It's good. I mean, it's still fine. If you have a PlayStation, you have Wing Commander 3, you definitely play it. There was also a Saturn port, which was canceled. This is one of those great lost game mysteries. I've chased it down. No one can tell me exactly how far along it was. It was actually shown at the very, very first E3 in 1996, 97, 96, I think. Is it the 21st anniversary of E3 right now? Anyway, that was a canceled port, and there was a port for the M2, which was going to be the successor to the 3DO, and they were going to do a fancier version. But, of course, the M2 never came out. Well, the technology got sold to make, like, car kiosks instead of game consoles, as 3DO got out of the hardware design market. So that's different versions. The other interesting thing I wanted to share, and I have part of it here today. Wing Commander 3 invented, and I'll make this claim, Wing Commander 3 invented the modern collector's edition. This was a special release called the Wing Commander 3 Premier Edition, which you had to get directly from Electronic Arts. It was, just like, you buy Wolfenstein with a doll today, or anything like that. You got this fancy film can edition of the game, and it came with just all sorts of crazy extras. There's a soundtrack in there. There was what I would only describe as the worst T-shirt ever made. It has this giant plastic thing on the back. But this, you bring this up and run game collectors, they're going to say, oh, no, Sega technically did it because there was a version of Echo the Dolphin earlier in 1994 that was sold by the Cetacean Institute, and it came with this, and this in a big box. And Wing Commander 3 is the one that did it in such a way that anybody noticed. Yeah. It's like RTS games. Everybody's like, oh, yeah, Dune 2 invented that, or Z invented that, or something. Command and Conquer is the one you know. Warcraft is the one you know. It's the one that impacted the industry, and it's the same for...
I just realized you brought your one that's signed by...
Oh, yes, I guess. In fact, now that I look at this, this is it's signed by Tom Wilson, who plays Maniac. This is actually not a Premier Edition. If it were a Premier Edition, it would say Premier Edition here. This is the cheaper Premier Edition that came from Sam's Club. It was the Sam's Club exclusive Wing Commander 3. And in there you've got 4 CD-ROMs. You've got the behind-the-screen CD, which was an interactive thing where it had like a making-of documentary, and you could look at screenshots. And in fact, you could probably do that instead of watching the show. It would be just as interesting. It would probably be more interesting. Anyway,
you're doing fine, Ben. Doing fine, Ben.
It came with the third Wing Commander novel, fleet action, just all sorts of odds and ends, fancy stuff in a giant box, and that kind of set the industry in that direction. So those are the different versions. What else? Let me go through some screenshots, and that is a tiny screenshot. And it's blurry. I don't know why. So
it's a tiny screenshot.
It is. So yeah, these were the first screenshots released of Wing. Here's a better one. These were the first screenshots released of Wing Commander 3. I remember dialing up to CompuServe to download the package of 5 of them, and it was like 50 kilobytes, and that seemed crazy. Yeah. The ship here, this is the Kilrathi triangular transport. You'll see it in Wing Commander 4 cutscenes. It doesn't actually appear in the finished game, although they did bring it back for the 3DO port.
I don't recognize it.
And here's some photos from the set. I have about a bajillion of these at WCNews.com if folks are interested. They had a photographer on set, and a couple of years ago I went to EA Mythic, and they happened to have all his slides preserved. So we got to do high-res scans of just this making of stuff, and it's really cool to see the details. This is the Emperor. Here's how they were making the Kilrathi. You kind of, it was kind of a challenge, Hey, we have cat people. The enemy in this game is cat people. How do we make cat people be a live action thing? And I know a lot of people cite Wing Commander 3 as this is the one where it worked. Wing Commander 4, they went for sort of like a friendlier, furry-looking thing, and it didn't go so well. Wing Commander 4 had more challenges. They were shot on 35mm film, much higher resolution. They did a DVD version. And more importantly, the Kilrathi actors had to interact with human actors in that. For most of the Kilrathi scenes in Wing 3, they're separate. It's separate. So it's animatronics. It's folks doing puppety stuff. Here is one of the few sets that was actually constructed for the game, the Kilrathi Throne. Almost everything in the full motion video is done with green screen, which was a bigger deal at the time. And it again very much sets up what we do with Star Citizen. We filmed Star Citizen with mocap and rooms that look a lot like this, and you look at the stills of the set, and like that doesn't look anything. Squadron 42 is just a guy with balls on his shirt. So that doesn't look like a movie. And you had the same experience here. You had to visualize how these pieces came together, and that is the singular challenge of game development, is visualizing how a million different pieces come together and make something spectacular. And that is Chris's genius. He can sit down and he can see how it all works. I can't do that. I don't know of anyone else who can do that like he does.
Yeah. I feel like it wouldn't be too hard to make this throne.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's just plywood, spray painted.
I think I might have a project this summer.
So here's some of the actors. That's Courtney Gaines and Ginger Allen, played Rollins and Rachel, respectively. I love there's Chris Roberts from behind. I love these, just seeing these people enjoying themselves making this game. It's so cool.
Like their booties.
Yes, that was our butt photo. Here's where that Jason Bernard played Captain Eisen. Unfortunately, he passed away shortly after Wing 4 came out. In fact, I remember the Wing Commander community all getting together to write memorials, and we sent them to his wife, and it was a whole thing.
Is it that early?
Yeah, he died pretty quickly after. He died between Wing 4 and Wing Prophecy. It's, when you think back to that era, it seems like it was 10 years. When I think back to like attending the premiere of the Wing Commander movie in 1999, the games all seemed old to me, and they were 2 years old. Now this game is 23 years old, and it feels like it was yesterday. So
now, what can you tell us about the decision-making process that leads to wearing that shirt?
What? Oh, if you are familiar, Chris has a fantastic sense of fashion.
It's the 90s, guys.
It's the 90s.
It's the 90s. We all had those shirts.
We have all admired Chris Roberts' 90s shirts. They are.
Yes, I have pictures in those shirts.
Yeah. And here I love this photo because, and I posted this in our company Skype earlier, and past his prologue. This is Chris Roberts directing Mark Hamill in 1994, and this could have been taken on the Squadron set with some more wrinkles and everybody, and 3D balls instead of a Wing Commander uniform. But it's just so cool how far we've come, and we're still doing the stuff that worked. Well, yeah, there's John Rice Davies. Here's Malcolm McDowell, who played Admiral Tallwan, very excited about a dog, apparently. I would love to know more about some of these photos. Chris Roberts, director. The cast. And back to those early screenshots. Let me show you. So they shot them on green screen. Just like a movie, Wing Commander 3 had this whole pre-production process where they sketched everything out. They gray back scenes, just like we do today. And this is very much where it came from. This was Chris taking stuff from Hollywood and figuring out how their processes they'd perfected over decades could be applied to game development. And it's what every single studio does today. Everybody operates on that like they're making a giant movie. This is where it started. Yeah. So I have this from Mark Verrier, who was one of the artists, where we can go right from this is the gunnery room of the TCS Victory, where some conversations would happen. You go right from sketches to, that's the finished version, to 3D CAD style drawing, to gray box, to white box, to the finished environment. Just like we do today. It was not something you done. They built 3D rooms for Wing Commander 2 and then rendered them out at 320 by 200 and put a head in front of them. But if you were looking at Wing Commander 2, the actors don't they're
characters,
cartoons. They don't interact with their environment at all. It's a background. Here you have depth and motion and so much detail in the background. The other thing that Wing Commander 3 did that made me incredibly happy, and I think everybody else, is it started Wing Commander as a franchise rather than as a series of games. After Wing Commander 3, you could go to the mall and you could buy a 3D Wing Commander poster or a Wing Commander shirt, or the Wing Commander TV show that hit in 1996 came right out of Wing Commander 3. It was actually initially pitched as essentially Wing Commander 3 babies. It was taking all these characters and de-aging them to do a previous game, their first mission. And it takes all the aesthetic from Wing Commander 3. It has their tan flight suits, and the character looks like Mark Hamill instead of like blue hair and so on. So you had stuff. And when you're a teenager sci-fi fan, you love stuff. So I grabbed a couple shots of ridiculous Wing Commander stuff I'll share with you. Here's Wing Commander 3, the luggage tag. Wing Commander 3, the paper plate.
Wait, I didn't realize this was paper before when we were looking at it. I thought it was like a fancy collector's plate. It's a paper plate.
No, this is a paper. This was at some press event, and I kind of imagine that David Swafford, who does our press stuff today, probably arranged for this to exist. They just printed that on the plates for this event. Or
Siri, remind me to ask David Swafford about Star Citizen paper plates.
Here are the shirts you could buy in the store. There's a company called Zanart, manufactured 2 Wing 3 shirts, 2 Wing 4 shirts, and something called Chrome Art, which is possibly the most 90s product in the world. It's like a framed print that has chrome pasted over it, so it looks kind of 3D. I should have brought some Chrome Art, and I have it all hanging at home.
That's right. Oh no, you gave me a Star Trek 6 chrome art.
Yes, because I for years and years I had 3 chrome arts in their frames, and one of them didn't have the frame.
Yes.
And understandably, Wing Commander chrome art doesn't come up much at auction. So I finally just said, okay, I'm going to buy the Star Trek chrome art, because they did Star Trek, Star Wars, and so on. And I took it out of its frame and so I made a fake. It's a fake.
Yep.
And
It's
I dumped all the. It was like a lot of 30 pieces of chrome art for $12, and I gave the rest to Jared and Toast. So.
Chrome art.
You can't throw chrome art away, but you don't really want to own it either. So it's
no, chrome art is a quintessential 90s. Wait, hold on. What?
This is Wing Commander 3 highlighters to promote the game in China.
Yeah, it checks out.
I have these in my collection. Joe Garrity, who runs the Origin Museum, gave me the set of these, and it's one of the stupidest, most wonderful things I own. This is the team shirt. This is the good shirt, by the way. This is the shirt that was given to everybody on the development team at the end of the project. And it's blue and says TCS Victory on the front, just like the prop shirts.
This is like Wing Commander 3 Heart of the Tiger hyper fighting is what that looks like.
Wing Commander 3 also set the standard of doing a patch, a physical patch for team members. People who worked on the game and after it shipped got leather jackets, and you could sew your Wing Commander patches to it. So there's a Wing Commander 3, there's a Wing Commander 4, there's a Privateer 2 sort of, and there's a Wing Commander Prophecy patch. And if you would collect them as you ship those games. I love patches. That's part of the reason why we have Star System patches today. I grew up collecting those space patches, and when I found out there were really exclusive Wing Commander patches,
you couldn't see it, but Chris Roberts just walked by and gave us a look that I'm used to getting. Let's just leave it at that. Gave us a look that I'm used to getting.
Yes. Okay, books. I'm sure it's not. I know it's not the first game ever to get a novelization, but there was a novelization by Bill Forstchen, who did two previous Wing Commander books. This is the 4th Wing Commander book. It's another one of those. Book 4 is Wing Commander 3. Book 5 is Wing Commander 4. That confuses the heck out of everybody, including the publishers, who, because of this last year, forgot to reprint Book 2 as an ebook because they thought 3 was 3 and 4 was 4. And so anyway, they're still trying to fix that. This is available as an ebook if anybody wants to go to Amazon or wherever ebooks are sold. Apple Book, is that still a thing?
Apple Book?
Apple Book. Anyway, it's a really fun book. And Andrew Keith, who was the co-author, when you see a co-author on these Bill Forstchen Wing Commander novels, it means Bill did the outline and the co-author kind of filled it in. Andrew Keith used to come and interact with the fan community. It was so exciting to talk to the guy who wrote the novelization at the time. Today we can go on Twitter and we can say terrible things to any game developer in the world, but back then it was this special thing. Unfortunately, he passed away a couple years later. He wrote a second Wing Commander book, False Colors, which was intended as the start of another trilogy that never got completed, unfortunately. He was just a really nice guy. And a great pulp writer. I mean, it's pure military fantasy. Mm-hmm. It's the stuff nerds love. Here's the German version, which for some reason did not use the beautiful key art from Wing Commander 3 and instead has this.
That's original artwork that was created for that. That's not.
And here's the Czechoslovakian version. In fact, I'm apologizing. I get the language wrong. It's Czech. Is it Czech? Anyway, the Wing Commander was not huge there, but the author, Bill Forstchen, was, and he licensed all his books, and they all have these versions from the Czech Republic.
So what does that title say, translated? Is that Tiger Heart?
I think it is. I don't speak Czech. I'm sorry. There were a million different hint books too. This is the one everybody knows. This is the David Ladyman edited Origins Official Guide to Wing Commander 3. This came with the CD with the making of in the back. It's a beautifully laid out Origin style guide. There was the authorized combat guide. This is a book, a game that was so important it had 2 official guides, and I don't know why I'm sharing that.
Yes, the title translates to Tiger Heart.
Cool. And I said 2 out of 3. 3. This is the only original foreign language official guide for a Wing Commander game for from Japan, which they put out with the PlayStation version. Wing Commander was never big in Japan. Ultima was. Richard Garriott, Lord British, the Ultima games were super popular over there. Hopefully the Shroud of the Avatar Ben Lesnick is going to do some stream talking about that, because that leads to Final Fantasy and also has a crazy impact today. But Wing Commander never quite took off, and they tried a couple different times. Wing 3 was the last one. They did a complete translation. They had a big marketing campaign. They really pushed it for the PlayStation.
And different key art. It looks like it uses the Excalibur instead of the lawn dart like all the other key art does.
Yes, this is the Wing Commander 3 PlayStation Japan key art. Anyway, those are... I guess we should actually play Wing Commander 3 too.
Well, we're about halfway through, so.
Let's see.
This one may go a little long, guys.
I'll share some concept art right before we go any further. Because again, this is how we do it today. You sit down with the idea for the stuff, you sketch it out. Here's the Black Main Naval Base, the Hellcat, the Kilrathi Corvette. Here's the Excalibur, the initial sketches. A Kilrathi, and they spend a lot of time going back and forth trying to figure out how you do live-action Kilrathi, as I mentioned. Here, and everybody loves this one. This was this is the original sketch of the Rachel mechanic character. The Kilrathi Corvette. Here's, I'm hopefully going to show you what this led to if we have time. The Straka Stealth Fighter. Here's the Colonel Blair. This is what they figured out the uniform for. If we look closely, you can see that it's Roberts instead of Blair. Anyway, all cool. Oh, I have more. Here's the asteroid base from the end of the game. Here's the gunnery room on the Victory, or that's the bridge on the Victory. The Kilrathi stuff, sets. And here's a photo of the actual development team's wall where they had all this concept stuff at Origin in Austin. And I always look at this picture and I wish I could reach into this and get it higher resolution and see all the little bits and pieces in there. It's so interesting. And that's part of one of the things I've been doing all these years as a crazy Wing Commander fan, is trying to preserve everything that's survived from this. Because there's so much art that goes into making a game that you don't see. There's just passion and love and effort that goes into creating the smallest thing in a game, and it's so cool to be able to unfold it and go back in history and see all that. And that's been part of our ethos for Star Citizen, is we want to show you what goes into this. We want to show you the concept art, and maybe it's not sexy and exciting that somebody did 200 different corporate logos for our game, but boy is that interesting. And man, it's interesting to see the 30 different ones that led to this one. So, it's cool stuff. Let me load actual Wing Commander 3 now.
I say we have 300 different corporate logos just for the 300 different corporations in our game.
So, I'm going to play a video for you first. By the way, the spoilers. So this is going to be spoilers. We're going to spoil the end of the game. We're going to show some of it. If you haven't played Wing Commander 3, stop watching this right now. Go play Wing Commander 3. It's that good. But one of the questions that everybody has in the world, and the spoilers are going to happen right now, is why does Hobbs betray you?
What? Chris Roberts' game with a betrayal?
Yeah, an Origin game with a traitor. Who would have thought? Hobbs was the Kilrathi wingman in Wing Commander 2. He was your buddy. He was a big fuzzy cat friend, and that. It certainly seemed, everybody loved him, but it was kind of because they told you to love him. He was, Mary Sue-ish to some degree. So for Wing Commander 3, they made the decision to make him the traitor. And it was very, very deeply enmeshed in the story of the game. The title of the game, Heart of the Tiger, is the key phrase that was supposedly going to activate his original personality and having him betray the Kilrathi. The scene that explains that was cut from the finished version of the game. I've heard alternate explanations for this. I think the most likely one is that it was the CD length. CDs you have 60-minute CD, 72-minute CD with more data and so on. In 1994, this shipped theoretically only for the futuristic next generation of 2-speed CD-ROMs. And the first generation of CD-ROMs did not read a full 68 I think minute CD, so they ended up cutting off video from the game in various places. There's a bunch of scenes that are cut, including there used to be news briefs between every couple of missions where you'd have the anchor they introduced in the intro who tells you what's going on in the larger war. There's bits and pieces like that. Since the 3DO and PlayStation version didn't have that limitation, there's only one kind of CD-ROM drive for a 3DO, there's only one kind for a PlayStation. They could bring back this footage, and they did for Hobbs. So I'm going to play Hobbs's hollow message that he leaves this for Blair, and you're supposed to go back to your locker and see it, and it, here you go.
Colonel, I am returning to my homeworld. But my admiration for you compels me to provide an explanation for my actions. You must understand that the Hobbs you knew was a construct, the result of an identity overlay experiment initiated long ago by Prince Frakath. Lord Ralga Nahales you have never truly met. I myself never met him until I heard the Prince utter your Kilrathi title, the Heart of the Tiger. This was the trigger that awakened my true personality, hidden for so many years. Once awakened by the words of my prince, I had no choice but to perform his bidding. Kilrathi do not surrender, nor do we betray. And yet, in being true to my kind, I have betrayed you. For I have watched you, Colonel, and know you are an honorable warrior. If we meet again, we will have no choice but to perform our duties with honor.
So if you, like many people who were teenagers when they played the game and you said, "What the bleep?" please beam that video back into your heads back then. They actually reprinted the text of it in the official guide. They got it out there as much as they could because, back then you didn't have the internet. You had all sorts of separate little bits and pieces that became the internet. But Origin CS was phone-based, so you would have people calling, "How dare you do that to Hobbs? What happened?" And okay, before we get to the fireworks factory, I promise we'll be there in a minute. I want to share one more thing, because this is my favorite Wing Commander spin-off product ever. The Wing Commander customizable card game. 1994 and 1995 was the height of CCGs. This was the craze. Magic the Gathering was the hottest thing in the world. You could license a CCG for anything. There was Star Wars, there was Star Trek, there was Sim City. There was Sim City, and a company called Mag47 got the rights to do the Wing Commander game, and it's just so cool. I love this so much. These are my cards that I collected when I was a 13, 14-year-old. I think I was a freshman in high school. It's one thing I love more than anything is seeing different windows into a fictional universe. Everybody takes like, these Star Trek novels are terrible. They don't match the show at all. Or, this RPG from the 80s is ridiculous now. Or the Droids or Ewoks cartoon, that's not canon. That stuff is what makes universes great. The different interpretations, these different windows from different minds into things. So seeing, 200 different little Wing Commander paintings in this card, I love it. And I think I spent every cent I had for like that summer. That summer between 8th and 9th grade was just begging and working and doing everything I could to buy packs of the Wing Commander card game. If you've ever tried to collect a CCG, it's really tough because it's not a matter of randomly getting a cards. You can have, because of different rarities, the rare cards are much harder to get than the common ones. So it took a long time. And it may surprise you to learn there was no one really trading Wing Commander card game back then.
What?
So, but what a cool game. What a beautiful... It just adds so much to the universe. I love it. Okay, let's play Wing Commander 3.
Now, folks have seen us do the long live streams for Wing Commander and Wing Commander 2. These happy hours are just short little teasers about the stuff. When the 25th anniversary of Wing Commander 3 does roll around, we will do our full-blown live, through the whole thing playthrough.
We've got a couple more live streams to do. So here's what you call a game flow screen. You saw the intro before the program. If you missed it, we'll share it later. It's 12 minutes long, which was insane. We saw the Wing Commander 2 intro. I remember Wing Commander 2 intro being the biggest thing in the world because it had real voices and it had like 4 scenes and the characters were in different places and it felt like I was in a movie. Well, now I literally am in a movie, and they have somehow gotten 12 minutes of super high quality actual movie of my favorite characters under this CD-ROM disc, and it looks like nothing else in the world. So this is called a game flow screen, which is essentially a menu disguised as an interactive area. And our ship is made up, our home base, the TCS Victory, is made up of different game flow screens. This is the flight deck where we would take off. It'll dump us here after a mission, and again, this is Chris Roberts' immersion. You don't just go back to the place where you need to talk to the next character. You have the cutscene of you getting out of the ship, and then you're on the hangar. And there's motion in the background. The ship will change depending on what you flew last. Here's the shuttle, because we landed on the shuttle in the intro.
You mean the Argo personnel carrier?
Very much an Argo. They call it a Type R, but that was established in a novel. I'm sure nobody caught it that here. So we go to room, and we play what's called a transition video. And again, this is Chris pushing the boundaries in a weird way, because you could really speed up this game if you didn't have the transition video, if you just went from menu to menu to menu. But it really puts you into the universe. Even if after the first 2 times you do it, you go into the menu and turn them off. Seeing you, Mark Hamill, you're telling Mark Hamill walk here, and then seeing him do it, it makes him you. Another thing I should point out now is Wing Commander 3 did not run like this in 1994. If you had a Pentium, it approached running well. Nobody had a Pentium in 1994. My friends all had 386s. I got a 486 that year. That was my parents had like a savings account for me for college, and I finally convinced them that they should use it to buy a Gateway 2000 for me so I could play Wing Commander. And look, it worked out.
The old Gateway 2000 cow computers.
So going from screen to screen, and especially loading a mission, could take quite a while. Loading a mission, on a 486, it could take 5 to 10 minutes. Yeah. And you would have to do it again every time you ejected, or every time you had to transition from space to atmosphere. You had to reload the mission into memory again and again, and it seemed like forever to take off again. Now it's nice and fast, and it's just an amazing, smooth experience. And this must be what it's like if people in the past coming to the future and seeing the internet. What's that? So, game flow screen. This thing in the center, where it's Hobbs, it's called a gump, which is they would film in front of a green screen, him just making movements, so they could put him instead of a postage stamp over the game flow screen, so you would know this is somebody I should click on. So if I want to talk to Hobbs, I can. Hi, Hobbs.
Welcome aboard, old friend. You're looking fine and fit.
And again, we don't have to watch all these cutscenes, but this is how it works essentially. You click on him and it loads up the it's called a Zan movie file, the compression. You see a lot of these kind of stuck pixels and things. That's because of what now seems very primitive, but at the time was amazing graphics technology.
But I requested.
So I'm just telling Hobbs that he's back on the flight roster. I can select him as a wingman now. In Wing Commander 1, the Tiger's Claw had essentially 2 game flow screens. You could go from one to the other. In Wing Commander 2, there was only one. It was you had one screen, and you would click to play a cutscene, you would click to play a mission. In this one, we've constructed the entire ship. It has 3 different levels and 2 different rooms in each one. And before I can fly the first mission, I have to go around and meet everybody. And I won't sit through that for this because I know everyone's to see some space action. But let me show you how the branching conversations worked. So here I'm talking to Rollins, the comm officer on the Victory. He's like a conspiracy theorist. He thinks everything is terrible and the war is doomed, and it is. Everything. One of the there's an interesting narrative to this game, which is Blair gets to the ship and he says, "Oh, Hobbs, you guys are being space racist against Hobbs. He's a Kilrathi, sure. They're killing trillions of us, but he's on our side. He's a good Kilrathi. I'm going to make him a pilot again. I'm going to trust him." And you have all these characters who you think are just, oh, these people are hateful. They don't like him because he's a Kilrathi. And the reveal is they were right. He was a traitor. So here's how conversation choices work.
This guy's alone.
You will get to a point, it'll play the first part of a video, and then you have to pick whichever one you want to how you treat the next part, and it will play a branching conversation. This is used over a morale system. All of the characters on the ship and the ship itself have morale points, and they will behave differently in flight depending on the choices you make. It's usually, and it's a little bit less clear in Wing Commander 3 which one is the right one sometimes. In Wing Commander 4, it's always pretty obvious. But, I mean, this is the beginning of, like, what you see in Mass Effect today with the conversation trees.
This particular conversation tree has additional importance because people often wonder what I'm sitting here thinking during these shows. This conversation tree is exactly what's going on in my head the entire time.
One of my favorite jokes that no one in the world ever appreciates except Toast is sometimes I'll just be mid-conversation with somebody and I'll look up and say something and look down and say something.
Play along with him. This guy's a loon.
So let's walk around the Victory a little. Can ride the elevator up. Get an elevator transition screen. Rollins is riding the elevator with us. And here on this next level is the observation deck. And normally we would jump right to the game flow screen. It's triggered a cutscene right here, which is showing us how Cobra can't stand Hobbs. She was a Kilrathi slave for 10 years, and she knows what's up.
Hey, Hobbs. How about going around with me?
You folks probably recognize him from Lost.
Thank you.
Francois Chow, I believe is his name.
Yes.
Plays Vagabond in Wing Commander 3 and 4. Easily the favorite wingman of...
yes.
Yeah. So here is the... Here's the rec room. This is, if you think back to Wing Commander 1 and the Tiger's Claw, where you would have 2 seats and a bartender you could talk to. This is that. If this were the 3DO version, I could click on the news screen up here to watch the next TCN newscast. You got your kill board. And it does not have my name because I'm not logged in yet. But those are our wingmen. I could talk to Vagabond and get more, but let's cutscenes for now. I would absolutely love to do a full playthrough and let you guys see everything. Here is this is the pilot barracks, and Blair's locker will occasionally have messages that relate to him in some way. We saw the Hobbs one earlier. Here I am going to see Angel. What happened to Angel, my girlfriend from Wing Commander 2?
It's classified. Just need to know.
Yeah, but here's her goodbye message to me. I can go and play that when I want.
Set up for covert operation with Admiral Tolwyn. So I'm afraid we might be.
Yolanda Gillot played Angel.
Always remember.
I actually looked her up recently. She is not acting anymore, but she is like a translator in Los Angeles now. So if we ever need somebody to translate French for us, we could hire Angel. You can kind of see now.
Play along with him. This guy's a loon.
I'm already skipping transitions just because I'm programmed to. But I love knowing that they're there. It's the same with cockpits. This is the game that premiered the technology to turn off cockpits. It's not the first one that had it, but after this game, every space sim in the world was like, oh, people don't like cockpits, we just won't have them anymore. It'll just be a VDU, heads-up display. And that was a bad decision on everyone's part.
Yes.
The cockpits make the ship.
Absolutely.
Here, I will play this one because it's Tom Wilson, Biff from Back to the Future.
Better to do. Okay, so I pulled into a tight loop, locked onto that cat's tail, fired off a heat seeker, boom! Turned him into kitty litter. It was a... All right.
Just perfect casting for Maniac.
If it isn't the Colonel.
He's so enjoyably obnoxious.
I didn't make your welcoming party.
Playing, I always had a tough choice between choosing Maniac because it was Biff and because he was so good, and choosing Vagabond because he was just like a step above all the other wingmen.
Orders, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm surprised you haven't been blown out of the sky by now, Maniac.
He's so good. He does comedy, by the way. Like, if anybody ever wants, he does a good show. He does
some people
comedy.
appreciate my flying style.
And if you ever meet him, he is always happy to talk about something other than Back to the Future.
You're still flying with one eye on the
Yes. And if you guys remember Special Operations 2, we brought back Maniac, and he'd actually had a mental breakdown. He had like he had like shaved head and skull earrings and bloodshot eyes. So they kind of dropped that idea for this, which
simple.
Good decision.
Wingman I can count on.
I would say this is a soft reboot of the Wing Commander universe in that sense. They kind of looked at Wing Commander 2 and they said it didn't necessarily like the direction it was leading. It was just kind of increasingly small universe. Everybody knew each other. It was very much everybody be friends sort of a thing. This is a much broader.
At the same time, though, he goes to a new ship and he's got two wingmen that he's flown with before.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
we do.
Canonically, this is the 36th Fighter Wing. They've been assigned to the Victory for about a year. That's all from the novel.
So.
All right. And then finally, we have the room we saw being built earlier, which is Gunnery Control. This is where people go for like staring off into space and having epiphanies. And here's Flint, one of my possible love interests. Oh, but I can't talk to her because I have to go to the briefing room. What a cool little touch. You don't have to have that in the game. You didn't have to introduce your character in a scene where nobody talked. But it's so Chris Roberts. So I've been called down to the briefing room. Trick for skipping the transitions in the lift that we all learned when this was very, very slow is if you really quickly go down to exit, it'll jump you ahead. And here's our mission briefing. Captain Eisen briefs you on the mission. You're the wing commander of the ship. You're theoretically giving orders to all the other pilots. So we get the mission from the captain, and we're supposed to give the orders to everybody else.
Here in the Orsini system. You and your wingman are to fly routine patrol of these 3 zones, sweep the area of any hostile.
I love these graphics. This is another one I wish I could have in higher resolution. Wing 4 was shot in 35mm film, and so it exists in super nice quality, which they used for the DVD.
These are the mission objectives.
This was never reissued. They never re-encoded any of this.
Oh, and one last thing.
And Electronic Arts doesn't know where the footage is, so unfortunately, a remaster is not likely. Although I do have the source code. If anybody from Electronic Arts is out there and they want to update Wing Commander 3, I would do everything I can to help, but you guys have to find your video.
Yeah.
Wingman Selection. For the first time in Wing Commander, it's not a preset thing. You have to pick your wingman. I mean, it's technically preset here because I have not gained any other wingman yet. Over the next couple conversations, I'll add them into my roster. Some of them don't show up until the second act or so, but I have to pick Hobbs now.
You're on my wing for this one.
And you can see how this works.
Dismissed.
I pick a wingman and it plays the cutscene for that to continue. It's this increasingly seamless jump between game flow and cutscene, which is also an important thing in gaming. You used to have cutscenes and gameplay is totally separate, and we still see people struggling to figure that out today with stuff like quick time events.
Yeah.
How do you make that work? And Wing Commander 3 does it very simply by giving the player some control mid-conversation. Here is my my
Chief Tech Rachel Coriolis, welcome to the Victory, Colonel.
for loading the ships.
Did you find
This
what
is
house on
Rachel
this one?
Coriolis. She's one of the potential love interests. This
Yes, sir,
another
not
thing they're using with the
Think it's
branding
about
technology
time
is
that cat's
there's a
one
point
hell of a
later
pilot.
in the game where you decide who your love interest is,
Here she is,
which
one Hellcat 5.
you wouldn't see in a game today. It's kind of corny looking back, but it was a really fun use of the
It's all
technology.
taken care of. The captain downloads the mission specs to me. I dope out the weapons requirements, so you're set to go.
Oh yeah?
In the future,
So
Colonel, you have the option of
normally,
choosing your own weapons.
as she's
Or
saying,
you can
normally I
trust
can come
my
out here and I
judgment
can
and fly with my
load the
default
ship
loadout.
myself. I can pick which ship I want. I can
promise,
pick the
Colonel,
armament,
never to
which is
disappoint.
also all new for Wing Commander. You did not have that in previous games. And a word about Ginger Allen. She is fantastic in this game. Everybody looks for this. Oh, she was an adult film star. She's not an actress. Not true at all. She is really, really good in this.
Well, that leads me to to the most important question in Wing Commander 3, Flint or Rachel?
I was a Rachel man always, as was Blair canonically. That's what we fix in the novel. Also, Flint is directly under my command. I should not... I'm a bad Wing Commander if you go that way. So let's fly a mission. One Hellcat 5 prime prep, and again we go from game flow to cutscene to take off. We see him literally getting into the ship, and depending on what ship we chose earlier, it would be different here. If you ever have there's a couple scramble missions where you're in a cutscene and alarm goes off and you have to rush out to your ship. It plays a new take on the original scramble mission music from Wing Commander 1, and it's beautiful. Okay, that thing that just flashed by, that was the 10-minute loading screen you would have seen in the back then. And it's also a Batman in-joke. It's atomic batteries to power, turbines to speed. So we all know that Batman reference by heart because we saw it in Wing Commander 3. In fact, there was good kind of genre in-jokes in here. When you quit, there's a quote from Alien. If you use the cheat code, it plays a voice sample from Mr. Science Theater. This game was made by nerds, and it shows, and it's beautiful. So this is you're kind of familiar with the standard Wing Commander interface. Here's I'm using a keyboard. We had trouble with a joystick, so I'm using a keyboard again. We've upped the resolution from 320 by 200 to 640 by 480. It's SVGA now, and everything is in actual 3D. This game uses an engine called Real Space. Here I got an object camera. I can go outside my ship. I can look at that. Wing Commander 1 and 2. There's the victory. Wing Commander 1 and 2 use 2D sprites that are scaled to seem like they are moving in different directions. Chris developed the real space technology for Strike Commander, which was his previous game. Came out in 1993. It was a air combat 80s action movie sort of a thing. We will cover it here someday. It's super, super fun. Strike Commander uses this beautiful 3D technology to do textured aircraft. Nothing like anyone had seen before. And part of the thinking in putting so much time and money into Strike Commander was we will reuse that technology for Wing Commander 3, and it'll be simple. We'll already have that, and we'll do cutscenes like we did in Strike Commander, and that'll be that. In reality situation, we end up pushing the limits just like Chris does, and we have, instead of just sticking with the other cutscenes, we have the whole full motion video thing. But it's cool 3D. You didn't have 3D like this back then. Think about X-Wing and TIE Fighter, which are beautiful games for their aesthetic. They're tremendously fun. They were great at the time because they were so fast compared to this. But, a TIE Fighter was a sphere and 2 flat things. This is something else. Shut up.
Sorry.
You also have LODs in this.
That's a box art quote right there. This is something else.
You have LODs. The closer we get to the ship, the more textures are loaded. And here, I can fly inside a spaceship. We were amazed by this at the time.
Absolutely.
So let me fly my simple patrol mission.
This is the Hellcat, right?
This is the Hellcat 5.
Enemy craft, Colonel.
Go Kilrathi Light Fighters. This is your basic Wing Commander intro mission where you learn to fly. You basically just learn to fly by fighting a couple of enemies. In fact, I think this is probably the Wing Commander mission with the fewest opponents of the main series, because I think there's 4. Yeah, I've already cleared the nav point. Nope, I haven't already cleared the nav point. Yes, I have. So the actual missions fall very much into this same Wing Commander 1 and 2, patrols, escorts, recon, with some cool surprises. Like there's shooting down enemy missiles that are going to target a planet. There's the Skipper stealth missile. They came with variations on the theme to keep it interesting. Another thing about Wing Commander 3 is that it's much longer than Wing Commander 1 or 2, because it has the same number of missions, but it has far fewer losing missions. There are 1, 2, 3. There's 3 or 4 losing series, but they're largely mirrors of winning series or just things you don't miss. Wing Commander 1, you play a tiny percentage of the overall missions, like a third of the overall missions. Wing Commander 3, Wing Commander 3 makes you play 40-something missions to get through it, and
yeah, it was an entire summer when we played. Yeah, it was an entire summer,
especially with the load time.
I was gonna say when we do the live stream, we're gonna simulate the 10-minute load times.
No, we're not. We want to get out of there at some point. More Darkettes. And here we can see.
What's your status?
There's the helmet that Jared is wearing. That's what it was for. Those little green and black comm screens.
Mission objectives accomplished.
Wow, it's easy.
I remember when I was playing for the first time, or watching my friend play because he wouldn't let me touch his computer. Matt Chamley. We didn't know the autopilot. So we lost a lot of time for the first couple days, not knowing there was an autopilot option.
But you know what? There doesn't need to be an autopilot theoretically. I mean, there needs to be an autopilot, but there doesn't need to be an environment where that works. You could just have, here's an action sphere, here's an action sphere, here's an action sphere, and you transition from one to another with a cutscene. The technology is all in there. It would make sense. It would be the easy way to go. It's not how Chris does it.
Nope.
This is an actual environment. All the nav points are live at the same time. I can take hours to fly from one to another if I want to. That space is there. I've seen ports where it doesn't have that. I think the 3DO one, you can't literally fly from point to point because it just couldn't handle that.
Really?
But that level of immersion was important to on the PC. So here.
Yeah. Okay.
So I get back to the victory. I have to clearance to land.
PCS victory.
Excellent work, Colonel. I can see now that your reputation is well deserved.
Yeah, it is.
Cleared for landing, Colonel.
So, and they recorded one of those scenes for every single mission, every 52 or so missions. The amount of content that went into making Wing Commander 3 work it's still staggering to me. And I see more content than that fly by me all the time here at work. Just the thought of organizing a project like this, it's incredible. And you look at all these little touches. Yeah, there's a flight crew that brings you down, and it's
His helmet doesn't have cool ears like mine does.
I have one of his helmets. I should have brought that in.
Pretty slick flying, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
And again, this conversation will change depending on how you do in the mission, or if your ship is damaged. Sometimes if it's an especially important mission, everybody comes out and greets you and, 3 cheers for the Colonel type thing. And looking at this game flow screen again, here is, it's got a Hellcat instead of the transport now. It's all these tiny touches. And Hobbs is still there waiting to talk to me. Look, I got to play the first mission without choosing my call sign. It's the first thing you do in the original Commander. I'll do Maverick because that's his canonical call sign. How are we for time, by the way?
Oh, we're already over, but
okay. Well,
it's all right.
I'll be quick.
No.
Let me show you.
It's Wing Commander 3. Let's do it.
All right. I want to show you 2 things. The first one is, I said there weren't as many losing missions. This one is really cool. Let me save game. I downloaded save games and they'll have the gamma correction really up. So, it's possible to lose the game in such a way that you have to fly 2 missions you can never win. Not just one, like, oh, the odds are hopeless. There's the odds are hopeless mission in the Proxima system. The Kilrathi are almost to Earth. You have to fend them off. You fight wave after wave after wave of them. And, you know, that could be the end. You know, they can force you to die there. This game has a series of 2 missions. You can win that mission. You can win the impossible mission. You land and, oh, we're withdrawing to Earth. This is our last stand. So this is the second part of that sequence. Why can't I?
You really got to suck to get to this mission.
You really have to suck a lot. Here's I'm the Excalibur. One thing you can do early on is to eject a punch, and then you can try the Excalibur early on in the losing mission. So this is the Kilrathi are almost to Earth. They are gonna. It's almost hopeless. I'm gonna go see what I can do. I think I don't have a wingman anymore. Maybe I do.
You'll always have a wingman in me.
By the way, those gloves he puts on, I have a set of them at home from the Wing 4 shoot. You cannot play the game when you're wearing them. You just can't control your joystick because they're so clunky.
But you tried.
Of course I tried. You tried. No. In high school, I spent a lot of time having eye surgery, and I couldn't play Wing Commander. I couldn't do any. I would have eye surgery, and I would have to keep face down for months and months and months at a time. And one of the producers on Wing 4 sent me one of the costumes with the helmet, and it is my prized possession to this day. So of course I put it on and tried to play the game when I could. It no longer fits. So here I'm flying to the.
This is the Excalibur.
This is the Excalibur, yeah. So here I am at the nav point. What I'm going to face here is just random wave. You can see I turn off the cockpit, turn on the cockpit, left, right, rear.
Enemy target destroyed. Enemy target destroyed. Enemy target destroyed.
So there's one of the escort cap ships. It's shooting all the bombers. What will happen in this mission if I let it sit is it's just going to play until I die. They're going to send wave after wave of ships. If I can get through like 6 of them, you get the only appearance of the largest ship in the game, which is the Kilrathi Dreadnought. It's a 22-kilometer long dreadnought ship. What I'm going to do here instead is eject.
Enemy target destroyed.
Because after this mission, there is an amazing losing cutscene, and it is so much better if they capture you alive. So, if you, and again, here, this is another immersion thing. I could eject or I could die in this mission, and it could just play the same end game where the Kilrathi destroy Earth. What Chris did instead was put in an interactive losing end game that only appears if I happen to eject in this mission. So if I continue.
Sir, all our shields are down. We can't stop.
They are not taking my ship.
Sir, what are you doing? You're heading right into their fleet.
We'll take as many of them with us as we can. Make your peace, Mr. Rollins.
I love that line. And that part would have played anyway. And here's the part that you only get when you eject. And artistically, this is an exact mirror of the winning ending. You know, the Kilrathi tractor you in, and in the winning end game, they surrender. in the losing end game, it happens. I'm also going to point out something that will ruin this for you when it happens.
The heart of the tiger.
You'll never truly conquer Earth, you know. Not before you have to destroy it.
It is of small consequence. Your homeworld is a watery planet, not an environment I have ever.
Cats don't like water. Cats don't like water.
It is a pleasure.
So they're going to kill us.
To have finally and completely conquered you. The Kilrathi are not, however, without what you humans call mercy. We shall grant you the opportunity to plead for your miserable life.
Not begging for mercy from this furball.
The game lets you beg for mercy when you lose. It's so good.
I don't want to die.
Mark is so good. He delivers these lines so well.
I'm begging for mercy from this furball.
So, spoiler warning for something that's going to happen in the next 2 seconds. If I select I don't want to die, he will beg for his life and they disintegrate him because they're disgusted. But if I'm not begging for mercy, let's see what happens. And watch Mark Hamill's back because that's the part that's going to ruin it for you.
I don't want to die.
Screw you.
For you Heart of the Tiger, a warrior's death.
There, his boot. You can see the person holding him up. This is the greatest losing ending in video games ever. I will make that statement. I will also argue that the Kilrathi seem to have a pretty good solution for dealing with our political issues these days. Sorry, Washington, D.C. The end. It's over! Amazing end credit music, by the way. So, that is the losing ending. How far time-wise are we over?
We're about 50 minutes over.
I guess we should wrap this up. I would love to show you, like, another one of the innovations in this game is Planetary Missions.
Oh, yeah, no, we have to do that.
Okay, we'll try to get to you know what, I'm gonna...
Yeah. That's actually thematically appropriate for our current state in Star Citizen development.
Planetary Missions have always been sort of the holy grail of sci-fi games, of space games. You know, you played Wing Commander 1 and you wanted to fly in an atmosphere. You played Wing Commander 2, you wanted to fly in an atmosphere. They even tease you in one of the add-ons for Wing Commander 1. They like warn you about when you're flying in an atmosphere, don't make this maneuver. You jerks, that's what I want to do. So one of the big tech innovations, which was not so hard to do for this, other than the sheer amount of memory required, because the engine was built for Strike Commander, was to do ground missions, where you fly to a planet, you fly into the atmosphere, you finish your mission objective, and you fly out. Because of this, it's one of those things where it ruins you for all future games, because suddenly every space game has to have that. Mm-hmm. And they worked them into Wing 4, they didn't do them in Wing Prophecy, and it became sort of a dig against space games after this. Like, why don't you have ground missions? Why don't you have ground missions? And it's one of the things we talked about early in Star Citizen. Are you going to have ground missions? Are you going to have planets you can fly into? And at the time, we were like, we really want to, but we don't see how that would happen in 2012. And now it's just such a big part of the game. And this is the early man compared to that. So, briefing. Skip the briefing. Hi, Rachel. You have to fly an Excalibur because there's cutscenes involved in the transition. Wing Commander fans for years like, oh, the other ships aren't atmosphere capable. Like, no, it's just because of the cutscene thing. And once you get the Excalibur, why would you want the others anyway? Take off. You know, I'm going to set this to rookie. I'm going to... Now, I'll try to get to the planet as quick as I can to show you this primitive version of a planet in a space game.
Sorry, back in space mission.
Look, they even have the background skybox planet is bigger in this mission. You know. So this game has a multitude of difficulty settings. I've set it to the easiest one, which really just lets you power through it. Theoretically. So yeah, I just flew through a flight of Kilrathi. That could have been like a 5-minute turning battle if I was on ace. So now to go down to the planet, we play a cutscene, And this is a hidden transition. What the game is actually doing is loading another mission, which was a pain in the butt at the time because that would have been another 5 to 10 minute load time. And here it is, the Planetary Surface.
It's Gila.
I mean, this is the distant ancestor of our procedural planets. Is this terrain it's not textured in this game. They textured it in Wing Commander 4, and it looks a bit fancier. But yeah, here in the last mission, you do a like Death Star style trench run, and it's through this surface. It's just cool. You get down to the planet, and you see that the Kilrathi have different planetary fighters. They're none at this nav point, but you have to attack tanks and ground vehicles and bases. It was much more than we expected would be possible. Copsy atmospheric fighters.
For those of you talking about how much you enjoy the music, George Oldsey has another Kickstarter for Wing Commander 2 music, right?
I think they ended that.
We ended that?
Yeah.
Oh.
But it is great music. There's some. He did do a Kickstarter a couple years ago, and they recorded some of this music with an actual orchestra, like they do in modern games, and it's so good. If you can find that out there, it's really good. Yeah, the music in Wing 3 is, again, everything goes up a notch for Wing 3. It's like people, as I was saying earlier, people paid attention to your favorite thing and they thought it deserved more. It's so good. So yeah, that's a planetary mission. It does not have planetary physics at all. I can just hit backspace and my ship will stop in midair. But this was something else at the time. It's hard to express.
Can you crash into the planet?
Yes, but it may take a while to explode because I'm in Rookie.
Oh, that's right.
And this will happen.
Now, what year was Wing Commander originally released? 94?
This was 94. Thanksgiving 1994. Right. And the postscript to this whole story is that Electronic Arts said, "Wow, it was the biggest thing in the world at the time. This was the biggest selling PC game. This changed everything, as I said earlier, about how games are made and why they're made and all that." And of course, Electronic Arts said, "Wow, this is so good. Now we have to do it every year." And they gave Chris a 1-year development cycle for Wing Commander 4. And if you know Chris Roberts, which I think you do, he doesn't do iterative sequels. He goes bigger and bigger and brings in new things, and that's what keeps him interested and fascinated and keeps, he understands. I was thinking about this earlier. When we went to see that Fast and the Furious movie, it's like the 7th or 8th or 10th Fast and the Furious movie, and everyone is progressively worse because it's the same formula over and over and over, and you lose momentum and actors and interest. Mm-hmm. Origin games are the exact opposite, and they are so unique in that. Ultima 2, Ultima 3, Ultima 2 is better than Ultima 1, Ultima 3, the 7th Ultima is better than the 6th. And the same for Wing Commander. Chris understands that the way to keep an audience, to keep this good and interesting and worthwhile to make, it's not to do a franchise where it's one. It's you do something fresh and interesting that keeps your creativity up. And that's why Wing Commander 3 is better than Wing Commander 2. Wing Commander 4 is bigger and better than Wing Commander 3. It's really the opposite of how Hollywood films work. So I love that philosophy for this sort of thing, and that's the best thing about Star Citizen, bar none, is that we are doing that. We are pushing the limits the same way he did back then.
Well, cool.
Oh, that's Wing Commander 3. I would love to do he says, while you sleep, they'll be waiting at as the quit thing. If we'd quit to DOS, that would have hung there. I would love to do a complete playthrough. I would love to talk about this game for many, many more hours, because if you were to cut me open and if you get past all the French fries and pizzas and so on, my core is this game. This is my second dad. That's a ridiculous thing to say, but it is so good, and it is so much of my personality comes through this. And
play along with him.
I love it. I love talking about this stuff. So thank you guys for, if there's anybody out there, thank you for sitting with us for this.
All right. So as we leave you today, guys, we have a couple housekeeping things. We have announced our next concept sale. It is the Xi'an Nox.
Yes, from Apoa.
Yep. That will launch next Friday for the introductory price of $40.
That's right.
And it does come with LTI.
Yes.
So you look forward to that next week.
The Nox is a really fun one because, and it's one that's going to get in game pretty quickly. We're scheduling it for 3.0. It's a cool, sexy space bike. I think you're going to like it a whole lot.
Yeah, I think you buried the lead on that one. Yes, this comes in 3.0. So it is a concept sale. We're trying. We're attempting to make it ready for 3.0. So yeah, it's a concept sale, but it's gonna turn around.
And we're gonna see that a lot more with concept sales going forward. We were talking about the Razor today, and that's coming really soon too. There's a much shorter turnaround for this stuff
because of the new way that we're concepting ships.
It's all the guys in the UK. They do such an incredible job.
Yep. So all right, I feel like there was something else, but I can't remember what it is. So we'll just go with that.
Jump Point will be out a little bit later today. Probably not as late as usual. We tried something a little bit different this time. David Ladyman was looking through material for. Usually we go, okay, this is the latest ship we were working on. This is something big we were working on. David Ladyman happened to find a guide to setting up thrusters in new ships, included with some material we gave him, and he was like, this should be an article. So he worked with a team in the UK to put together this How We Do Thrusters is the big article. And it's super interesting.
Yep.
So it's going to be a good jump point. Food Citizen, if you're in the Los Angeles area and you want to hear me excitedly emote about Wing Commander 3, I will bring the card game. I'll be a Food Citizen, you'll be a Food Citizen. Plenty of folks will be a Food Citizen. Come to Food Citizen.
Yeah, okay.
It's in Van Nuys. 7 tonight.
Yeah, the details are up on. There's a Spectrum post in the meetup section on Spectrum. Something for Father's Day?
Oh yes, we're doing a small sale for Father's Day, bringing back a couple of the hot rod style racers, the M50 and the Razor. We're also setting it up so that everybody can try the M50 over the weekend. We kind of had this joke about it. These are the midlife crisis ships. You get to a certain age, you want.
You buy a fancy hot rod.
You want your fancy hot rod ship to speed around the galaxy. And so if you're interested in picking up either of the ships, they'll be available over the weekend. If you just want to try the M50, that will be available to all backers to try over the weekend.
Right. And if you haven't checked out ATV from yesterday, has an amazing segment on serialized variables. And I know it's like, amazing segment on serialized variables and networking stuff. But if I do say so myself, it's one of the best segments that our guys have worked on. Clive Johnson just kicked it through the uprights. He knocked it out of the park, whatever sports euphemism you want. If you've ever wondered how the heck we're going to make Star Citizen possible, it's a great segment for that. So check that out from yesterday's ATV starring Clive Johnson.
And isn't it amazing that we have the breathing room and the backers who support that sort of thing, where we can tell you what seems like it would be incredibly dull. If I walked into an EA boardroom in 1994 and I told everybody, hey, I'd like to do an article about how Wing Commander 3 renders the planetary textures, and would have laughed me out of the building.
It's the kind of segment that only Star Citizen can do, because only the Star Citizen community would actually be interested in it. So those are my favorite. So. All right, with that, we're going to leave you with one final thing before we leave. This is why don't you set up what this clip is before we head out?
So this is the Wing Commander 3 store demo trailer. They would put this, it would get sent to Babbage's, Electronic Boutiques, all those great 90s video game stores on a VHS. They would have put it in their window and played it over and over again. I remember sitting at the mall watching this, just standing there for hours. This was Wing Commander? What?
Yeah, this is the video. This is how I discovered Wing Commander. This video is how I discovered Wing Commander, how I discovered Chris Roberts back in the day. So it's an important video for us. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, guys.
TCS Victory is a fine carrier with a long history of service to the Confederation.
Welcome to the TCS Victory, Colonel.
Well, what would you aim for if you had the biggest gun in the universe?
Never let it be forgotten. It is when the foe is near vanquished that he is most dangerous, my friends.
Well, I'd blast planet after planet if we would rid the galaxy of Kilrathi.
Listen, you can't freeze me out like this. I want a piece of the action.
Here she is, one Hellcat 5. She's prepped, primed, loaded, locked, and ready to kick some ass. I promise, Colonel, never to disappoint.
Which the heart of the tiger continues to jeopardize.
A fine quality, your transfer of loyalty.
And I'm probably way out of line here. But
it seems like maybe there's something between you and me.
Oh, I don't think getting into her pants requires any high-risk maneuvering.
Are we going to expand upon that moment? Are we going to kick in the afterburners here?
Red alert! Launch all fighters! Launch all fighters! This is not a drill!
Colonel, you didn't exactly seem yourself out there.
Colonel, request to see you when you land.
Hey, Lieutenant, I'm trying to work here, thank you very much. Unbelievable. What does she think this is, a free-for-all chat channel?
You really took some hits out there.
What's going on?
oh, our comm system's been jammed. Guess who's behind it?
I have read your Terran Bible that there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. It is about to be fulfilled. We'll scoop out your brains. I leave you and your miserable comrades.
Yeah, well, people were dying out there, you son of a bitch. It's a war. People die all the time.
You still have time.
In fact, we haven't had shore leave in months. In fact, all we do is move from one defensive mission to another. In fact, our entire force is constantly in retreat. Now, is that just my imagination, or is the entire war effort unraveling before our eyes?
We are winning the war, Your Majesty.
I'd rather crash and burn than make a commitment.
Damn it, man, you put your own needs above that of the ship's. You can't ever do that.
Hey, too bad Cobra had to die to get her point across.
But this is war, laddie. All of us have lost someone dear to us. That does not make you special.
Fight well, Captain. The struggle will only get harder.
But if there's a hell to go to, I know they've got a special place reserved for me.
They are not taking my ship.
Sir, what are you doing? You're heading right into their fleet.
We'll take as many of them with us as we can. Make your peace, Mr. Barnes.